Well, hello everyone. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate the crowd. This is amazing. So, mine are the robots. So I'm the ceramics guy. I own Made Muncie Potter over there. If you've ever been in there, but these robots are a relatively new series for me. I started them about 8 to 9 months ago, and they're kind of an exploration for me of how to use the techniques that I've discovered over the 30 years I've been playing with clay, and how to make that into a sculptural piece. So all of these are thrown or hand built bits that are then put together to create these little creatures. They're playful, they're fun, but they also kind of reference some of the things that have happened in my existence. So I was in the Navy, was in an accident and got banged up, and kind of had to be put back together before they retired me out of the Navy. And so these are kind of a representation of that. And the more that I work on them, the more I kind of think about how everybody has that, right? I mean, there's always something that that kind of caused that ding or that blemish of yours that you have, and that you can still be functional, and that being a little banged up is all right. And so, that using clay as a mode to kind of express those ideas of being not perfect is okay, and it's still beautiful. So I kind of like that, and the playfulness is nostalgia from being in the '80s, and I was promised robots, and the only thing I got out of them were those little things that like deliver sandwiches. Like that doesn't count. Like I wanted like real robots. So anyway, these are all kind of things that I've been drawing or tinkering with for 30 years, and now I'm finally kind of making them come to fruition. And all the little bits and bobs on them are kind of representative of the journey that I've had to take, both with the physical limitations that I have now, but also the things that have happened to me, just as a human. So I think everybody has experienced in some way, shape, or form. So that's what I'm trying to talk about with these robots, and they keep evolving. If you can kind of see it, the evolution starting to happen. So, which is also fun. I think that's a funny concept of evolving machines, which is funny. Anyway, funny to me. Anyway, so again, thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions about the process or the steps that go into it, please feel free to ask. But yeah, most of them, it's all ceramic. So I mean, there's wire on one of them and some lights and some others, but all of the bits are actual clay. So it's fun to been figuring out how to make that happen. So appreciate everybody being here. Thank you.
Both artists will be taking questions after Stephen is talking, and then after that, they're going to be hanging around a little bit for conversation.
Sure. As Toren said, thank you for coming. This is amazing. Like we were talking, we were like, oh man, the sidewalk. There may not be people here. People may not be able to make it in because they can't get past the sidewalk. And I was like, well, we don't need people in if they can't get past the sidewalk. But it was great to see everybody here. These are mine. So again, I'm Stephen Millben. I started out doing those style, the stained glass style. I've been doing those for years. It wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago when it dawned on me that possibly the reason that my artwork looked like stained glass is because my father used to make stained glass way back, like years ago, and it completely left my memory. And I was working on a piece, and it just popped in my head like, wait a minute. I used to sit and watch him do this all the time, but slightly different process because mine are digital. But and then one day I was actually in a training, working or listening to a trainer, and I was doodling on a piece of paper. My boss used to always tell me if he didn't see me drawing, he knew I wasn't paying attention because that's how I could focus. And I made all these cool doodles, and I was like, ooh, they're on the back of some training manual. Let me go take them home and put them on real paper and use them for something. And they never looked the same. And so I kept trying to recreate doodles on the fly, and it just didn't work. So finally I decided, I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna just doodle in one place. Just keep something with me and always doodle on that piece of paper, so they'll always be correct in my mind. Did a few of them that were just full pieces, and then kind of got into the whole idea of the mandalas. And I was like, well, what if I doodle and turn it into a mandala? So they became urban mandalas. And some of them are chronological, some of them are not. Well, at least I can't tell. Some of them I can look at them instantly and tell you when I started and when I finished it. Some of them are like this one, I couldn't tell you. I have no clue. There was some stuff happening at the same time. But like that one started on the 4th of July. So if you look in the center, there are fireworks. And I know that it ended somewhere around September or October because we got jack-o'-lanterns. And so some of it is definitely chronological. All of it isn't. But a lot of it just has to do with day-to-day stuff. Like things that just like, oh, that was cool. And it doesn't have to be important. It just has to be there. And I found out that the more I add to them, they change shape. So a lot of them, like some of them are very circular, like this one. And I did that on purpose. But the ones that have these other shapes, some of them have circles in them, but a lot of the shapes just come from, oh, I think I'm going to stop here. And then just not add anything else to it. So then they have gaps and some openings and stuff like that. I work line work, background, accent, and I spend about, even if, let's say this took me 3 months to make, that's just the line work. It probably took another 3 months to figure the colors because, as you may know, not all colors look good together. And the color so it's funny because I'll sketch these in a color and I'll post pictures of me working on them and people will be like, oh, I love that color. And then they see the final and they're like, where'd the red one go? And I'm like, that was a sketch color. That was just what I started. Some of them stay that way, but a lot of them, I'll experiment with line color and I'll change the lines. And then I'll be like, well, now I got to change the background because that line doesn't look good. And then I change the background color. And I've probably done some of these, I've probably done 20 or 30 combinations of colors to try to figure out the ones that, and even this one, I went in and was like, I can't see the lines. So I made several of the lines yellow, but some of them are still green because I was like, well, I don't need all of them yellow. So it's a lot of trial and error and, trying to figure out. And my ADD won't allow me to work on one thing at a time. So I'm in the process of working on 4 more of these. And they all are like, one, I'm adding color. One, I'm adding accent color. One, I'm doing the background. And then one is just line work. And then I've got about 12 of those that I'm working on. And it's like, I'll work on them for a while and get bored. Be like, let's try something else. And start doing something else. And then I've finished paintings in a day. And be like, wow, that's dope. And then start another one that took me 6 months. So it's that process is just very, it's good for me though, because I'm constantly thinking of new ideas. And I realize a lot of the ideas I think of are not good enough to be their own painting. You know what I mean? Like there's little things that you think of. It's like, well, you can't make a painting of that one eye. But it was a cool thought. So then it ends up in here because I can put it in a painting along with about 1,000 other cool ideas that don't make it to their own painting. So yeah, definitely feel free to look around if you have any questions. Definitely look at them closely. Because like I said, there's a lot of information in these. And we'll be around if you have any questions. Thank you again for coming up.
Are there any questions that anybody would like to say, like as a public question? Toren.
Yeah.
This is your most biographical work. So, how does that relationship feel with your work?
This is the most. Yes, I guess it is probably the most biographical. I did have another sculptural piece that I did for my senior thesis at Ball State that was about the opioid crisis that had some ties. But this one is a little bit more hyper specific about me, which is and it's kind of changed the way I look at it too, because I'm trying to make sure that it's not just me. That there's ways for that to also filtrate into the ethos of others. I think that's what art's supposed to do, is have that communication happening, not just me telling you about myself, but letting you actually engage with it individually. So yes, I think it's been, but definitely this is the furthest I've gone down that road. Yes.
Or do the numbers mean anything?
On some of them, they do. Yes, some of them are coded, and if you can figure it out, rock and roll. If you can't, try harder. No, or come bug me. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them were. I kind of look at some of them almost now. The first ones as you know, almost test pieces, kind of figuring out, making sure that this is something that I can actually do, that I like enough to continue with. But the further down the line, the more involved those numbers or all the bits on them mean something now. So yeah.
I think what's interesting about you two is you're both small business owners too. Like you own businesses, you keep businesses going, you have business minds, but yet you have time to create this art, and that balance of business and I mean, you run screen embroidery in the village, you are made in. I mean, how do you do that? Like, where do you find it? Like, I can't even like eat dinner or talk to my husband outside of work. I mean, how do you find the time to do this?
You want to take that one?
It's the blessing of ADD. see, people don't understand. It's not a curse. It can be a superpower if you use it correctly.
With great power comes great
responsibility. I used to put on my calendar that my New Year's resolution was to be in bed before 3 a.m. And this year I have made it. I'd make it to about 1. I try to get in bed by midnight. That doesn't always happen. But I'm constantly, so I do a lot of these in my shop. So a lot of people will drive by my shop at like 1 a.m. and the lights will be on. And I'll hear somebody knock on the door. And I look over and it's one of my friends. They're like, what are you doing here? It's like, what am I always doing in here? Like, I work during the day. I go home and eat, spend time with my kids. I come back and do this. And it just kind of recycles. And it doesn't, if I sat still, it would just be too much. Like it's just overwhelming. So I have to keep moving. I don't know if that works for you, but that's how I get stuff done. That and coffee.
Yeah, I mean, same. Not necessarily one. I don't do 1 a.m. But yeah, there's a balance. I mean, work life. It's kind of part of it, and thank goodness for my partner who helps with that a lot. So that's kind of the key for me, is making sure that I find those moments. And with any art, I think you kind of have it come in waves, where I'll work like a banshee for 2 weeks on one thing and get something knocked out, but then it'll go away, and you'll be stuck looking at them for 2 months going, I don't like it. Anyway.